Live! Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Android Central Podcast. It is episode number 179 for Friday, April 4th, 2014. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to the show. I'm kind of excited today, and I'm not sure if I have reason to be, but part of it's because I got a new computer here, and we're breaking it in, and part of it's because it's Friday. It's been a fun week. We've had a lot of good stuff. If it's your first time joining us, thanks for showing up. If you're watching live, especially, very cool. If you are listening or watching later, that's okay too. It's all right. Jerry, is that okay? Do you approve?
I'm fine with anything.
Jerry Hildenbrand in West Virginia.
Hola.
And we got Alex Dowie in the UK.
Hello, and good evening, everyone.
Does it offend you that I mentioned the UK and not what city you're in the UK?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I can deal with that.
There's cities over there?
Just checking. They have shires.
At least one.
Next week, can we get Bilbo?
That was named my first dog, by the way. But you didn't know that.
I thought you were going to say kid, not dog.
No. Andrew Martinick in Seattle.
Howdy, everybody.
How's life up there?
Pretty good. Weather's actually been not terrible for once, as it should be, because it's actually spring. But that doesn't always follow the rules.
So is that actually sun on your face there?
That is sun. I have my blinds almost all the way down, and it's still that much sun.
That's impressive. Yeah, this is artificial brightness. Weather's kind of
And this
crappy
is
here
just
in
nighttime
Florida.
here.
So, kind of an interesting week. Where do you guys want to start? We could talk some more about the HTC One, or talk about other stuff.
I mean, this HTC One?
let's talk about Amazon, shall we? Kindle? No, I keep God. I keep
You know how many
Kindle Fire
times I
TV.
miswrote that?
I know, it's driving me nuts. So, Amazon Fire TV. Andrew, you've got one. I'll have one tomorrow. So you just talk for the next 10 minutes.
Bam! I have all of the things, and it's on over there too.
Oh, I see it.
So, So Amazon kind of just came out and did kind of what everybody expected. They came out with a set-top box, but it's a lot more than your average set-top box because it's actually got some real hardware underneath the hood. It's pretty much a Kindle Fire HDX folded in half and put inside a box without a screen. So it has a lot of power. It runs the same OS, Mojito or whatever they're calling it now, Fire OS. It's Android 4.2 basically, and so it has all your video on demand kind of options, except for Google Play and HBO Go and things like that. But it also does games. It also does all kinds of Android apps. So it's kind of a weird set-top box plus a few other things. And I think a lot of people were expecting a kind of a dumb streaming box, kind of maybe a step above a Chromecast, but they weren't really expecting this.
You know what it doesn't do? It's the one thing it doesn't do that I want it to. Google Play Music. That's the only, for me, that's the only thing missing. I mean, it does YouTube, it does, and Google
It does
Play
Pandora and iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio Pro.
Oh, that's... All right, so I ordered one. It'll be here tomorrow. You know what I did? Tell me if I'm crazy.
Yes.
So I decided to unhook my Xbox 360 and instead order a Blu-ray player. I've got to have some sort of player because the kids have DVDs and stuff, right? Ordered a Blu-ray player, and I'm going to use the Kindle Fire. God! I'm going to use Amazon Fire TV. Was that crazy?
Do you play Xbox 360 games?
Not every once in a blue moon. My daughter loves doing what's that? Not fitness, but whatever, like the sports games, Kinect Sports. And Kinect's fun, absolutely. Like, I have no problem with the Xbox. I have no problem with Kinect. I love them. I think they're great. We just don't use them very often.
And the Xbox 360 is gigantic and has a huge power brick, and the Kinect is another thing. And the Fire TV is just silent, and it's just this little hockey puck thing. It's about the size of an Apple TV. It's like, it's kind of a no-brainer if you're not going to play the games.
I think it's kind of interesting now we're having this sort of intermediate step between a traditional games console and basically a Chromecast. where I think maybe the Apple TV was on the Chromecast side of that. Now you've got something which is sort of spawned off from the mobile device side of things, and it is really more than just a dumb streaming box, but not quite as super high-end as a console. And it'll be interesting to see if anyone else gets in on that category in the next year or so.
So, all right, so there's a question, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot the last 24 hours. Does Google need to try again at the set-top box sort of thing, right? Google TV just fizzled, on its own. It's still out there. It's not dead. But do we need to see something? Is that the sort of thing Google needs to focus on again? More than just a dongle, less than Xbox caliber.
Yes.
I think it's hard to say simply because we haven't seen Chromecast get to its full realization, unfortunately. We've only started to get the major expansion of apps. I mean, it's kind of the downside right now is it's waiting for third parties and Google to approve third parties to get apps ready for Chromecast. But even when we do get to that point, so say a year and a half from now, the top 75 kind of media apps all support Chromecast. It still doesn't have that local processing where you're going to be able to hook up a bunch of controllers like the Fire TV or play intensive games on the stick itself. It's really just a media device. So I feel like if they do want to do more than that, Chromecast is a little handicapped once it gets to the top level of just media playback.
And it's handicapped by design, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's intended to be. It was. I don't think Chromecast was ever supposed to be their one answer to everything in the living room, and yeah, of course they've got stuff going on built into TVs as well. But I think there's something else that we're not quite seeing yet.
Hey guys, Jerry's about to say something. Nobody let him talk.
That's all right. I'm listening.
What are you thinking?
No, the Chromecast is by design a dumb streaming stick. That's what it was designed to do, is stream what you tell it to stream. You provide an address to stream it from and an interface to show it on the TV, and it just streams the data. Google TV, on the other hand, was a big, huge, complicated, typical Google version 1 product mess, but had a lot of good points that need to be not forgotten. The two need to mate. Some people want more than a dumb streamer. Some people want that within the Google ecosystem. So Google has to step up.
The thing is that the Fire TV is not trying to do what Google TV did as far as an HDMI pass-through and melding with your original TV. I think that was maybe a very high bar for Google to set for itself for Google TV.
Correct.
This is more of a standard. You plug it in. Hopefully it's going to be input 1, Amazon hopes, and you're just going to fire it up, and you don't bother with the TV. You just funnel in all of your other services, and right now that's kind of still also a pie in the sky thing. Not a lot of people are going to completely give up their Chromecast, their Xbox, their Blu-ray player, and everything just for the Fire TV, but it's a little more attainable than what Google TV originally tried to do. You think about what the Fire TV is doing, it's pretty basic, and it's something that somebody like Google could handle completely fine. They could hit the same kind of price point, the same kind of specs and experience. Obviously, they would do it a little bit differently. You'd have a subset of the Play Store available there instead of Amazon App Store, but you could easily see them, going with something very similar to this.
The interesting thing for me is the ecosystem side of it, because if you look at the average smart TV right now, you'll generally get Netflix, you'll generally get YouTube and a bunch of other stuff in there. I'm curious to see what Andrew thinks of just whether the Amazon ecosystem makes it worthwhile in that case. If you already have a smart TV, is the extra Amazon stuff worth the asking price?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is not necessarily that, okay, it just does Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, but it has a lot of hardware to actually do those things well. You go through the interface, it's fast. You hit the Netflix button and it just opens. There's no huge splash screen or waiting for things. Search works well, and the biggest thing also on top of that is that shows the potential of what apps could do in the future. So all Amazon, if you're in the App Store already, you just have to resubmit your app with a few things to be Fire TV compatible. And now we already see, like I said, Pandora, TuneIn Radio, there's Watch ESPN, there's Bloomberg TV, there's, let's say, like a couple other live news networks. There's things like that on top of the fact that you can do games that shows that this can go way beyond what a smart TV can do until Samsung and Sony and LG start putting serious hardware into their TVs as far as processor, RAM, and a more capable operating system.
And I find it the most interesting is now you can see Amazon said, here's the Fire TV, developers develop for it. Google said, here's the Chromecast, in 4 months we'll allow developers to develop for it. Mm-hmm. And look at the amount of apps in the Amazon App Store for the Fire TV already.
Right, they cut deals before it even came out, and they have apps, games that are set up to only use the controller, so they don't require any other input, no tablet or remote or anything. They have Watch ESPN is a great example. It looks the same as the tablet app, except for it's been set up to be used with the remote with larger buttons, all the interfaces off to the side. It's actually set up to be on a TV, and Amazon did these things before the device came out. So when you take it out of the box and you go to recommended apps, they have 15 great looking apps that are there right out of the box, which really couldn't be said for the Chromecast.
You know why I have to have Amazon? I'll give you the one reason why I have to have it. Dora the Explorer. I kid you not. I mean, that's not to say Amazon doesn't have a lot of really good content on it, but these content deals. Because remember, Dora used to be on Netflix, and I saw when it hopped over, it's like this is gonna be trouble. Is the fast switching really that fast in the voice searching? Or is that just limited to Amazon content? How far does that go?
So that's the one problem with the voice search. So the voice search is great, and I like the fact you press and hold the button and then you let go when you're done talking, so it knows exactly what to clip. It's not this weird thing with Google Now where you have to stop talking for 5 seconds and let it recognize. But the problem is it only searches Amazon content. So even if you're signed into Netflix and you're signed in to Watch ESPN or they have Showtime or whatever they have, it doesn't search across those, and it kind of sounds like an Amazon thing to do that. They want to just pull their catalog front and center, and they also know their catalog, amazingly well with all their IMDb information and their catalog information. They're just not really going to be able to search Netflix as well as their own content, obviously, but it still kind of gives you the bad taste that Amazon doesn't really want Netflix to be there as much as they put them on the box. They would prefer that you just do the voice search, and the only buttons you see are going to be for Amazon.
Okay.
But for that, it is extremely fast. It's this is way ahead of any smart TV or the Apple TV by a long shot in terms of speed.
Does it make you want to talk to your pants?
No, not to my pants or a lamp or thank the fish outside. No.
What are your first initial, what are the top 3 things you love about this thing? Why do I want to buy a Fire TV over, say, a Chromecast?
So the first thing actually is games, which is actually kind of surprising because that's kind of it's 20% of what the Fire TV could do. But as soon as I went into the game section, loaded up a few games. Amazon has one called Sev Zero. I think that's a first-party game. These are graphics that I explained it as somewhere between the original Xbox and the Xbox 360, and it's somewhere between $2 and $5 games, and they work right out of the box with a controller. They're downloaded in 2 minutes. One-click buy, and then you just play them, and they're casual. And at the same time, you can head back to the home screen. You can open up Pandora, and you can listen to music while you're playing your game. And at any time, you just hit the home button, and you can switch between things. It's not such a dedicated device that you say, okay, I'm going to turn on my Xbox 360, I'm going to play a game, and I'm going to turn it off, I'm going to start the Roku and watch something else. You can just move around between all these different things.
It's quite interesting because that's what Microsoft's targeting the Xbox One at now.
Right.
Totally different price point for that device, but they really want that to be a one device for TV. They have everything coming at this one box, hence the name. So it's kind of interesting that Amazon has this idea, but at a much lower price point and maybe with a more accessible product.
Do you find you're buying apps a second time now? That's my other kind of concern.
I know that's kind of the issue is, it's going to get you locked into the Amazon App Store. When you log in with your account, it'll already show any apps that you've bought in the Amazon App Store that are compatible with the TV. There were a few in there, are free or paid. And, as soon as you get something there, are you going to buy TuneIn Radio Pro for $4 or whatever if you already own it on Google Play? And that's kind of true with games, especially because games are a little more expensive, and you start getting into in-app purchases, and Amazon throws you at these Amazon coins and everything. And that has me a little hesitant, and that's why I don't really use the Amazon App Store on a regular basis in the first place, because I just don't want two different catalogs. And if I had a Kindle Fire, it would make a little more sense for me. But at least with this, I know when I buy something, I'm getting the the Fire TV experience where it will work with the controller and it's made to work for the device. That's kind of the one nice thing.
Should we start drinking every time somebody tries to say Kindle Fire TV?
Like Galaxy Gate 2 all over again.
I'm excited for it. I want to play some games on the TV again, and I want to play Android games on the TV a little bit. Why? All right, so here's the other question. Does it kill Roku, and what does it do to Ouya, which never kind of really took off?
I think Ouya was already dead, wasn't it? If we're honest.
Have you ever used one?
No.
It was really clunky. It was dead out of the box just because of that. Great idea, needed a little bit more finesse.
I think that Ouya, like you said, is already, pretty much done for, but this just solidifies the fact that in 2014, you're going to have to do a lot more than what Ouya offered last year, as far as an Android, I don't know, micro console or set-top box or something like that is going to have to offer. This, even if this was just a game machine, it didn't even have anything but just the games, it would be compelling, I think, at $99. And that says something for, it's just not a super crowded space, the micro gaming console necessarily. So there's room, but I think Amazon's setting a high bar there. And as far as the Roku goes, I think I told somebody in the comments that there's a lot of overlap in what they do, so it's kind of hard to say, if you already have a $79 or $99 Roku, can you really go buy another $100 box that overlaps about 90% of the services? I'm not so sure about that.
Can we edit that last part out so my wife Terry doesn't hear it? Because I had that exact same discussion, and she brought up the same exact point. Jerry, you have a smart TV, you have a Blu-ray player, you have a PlayStation. What does this Amazon box give you that you don't already have, and is it worth you pulling the big TV stand out, getting behind there, and hooking up something else that doesn't bring anything new?
Right. I would say the discussion's a little different if you don't have a box yet and you're looking at buying one. Like I said, the Amazon Fire TV option is faster, has a nicer interface, and is roughly the same price, so that kind of makes a little more sense. But if you already have a Roku and you don't want to care to play games on it, then it's kind of hard sell.
There's some really good stuff on there. I mean, I'm excited just for the amount of content they have. And like Jerry said, it's not, hey, here's this cool thing, there will be cool stuff for it eventually. It's, here's this cool thing, there's cool stuff on it now, there absolutely will be more, hey, developers, here's how you do it. I mean, that's the right way. And it's come a long way for Amazon, which, when the App Store first launched, I don't want to say half-baked, but there was definitely room for improvement. I mean, everybody worries about Samsung leaving the reservation. Amazon's never been on it, and damn, they're doing it well. Doing it really well.
And what we need now is that phone.
Yeah.
And this shows why they did the App Store, right? Everybody was kind of confused at first, and they're completing the circle.
It shows how short-term our thinking tends to be. I think, especially as users, why are they doing an App Store? I already have an App Store. Well, because 2-3 years down the road, they're going to need it. Yes, Jerry. Yes, Jerry.
I was going to say, I use the Fire HD. I do a lot of reading, and that's what I use for my reader. I buy my books from Amazon. The curated part of the App Store is great. I know any app I install on that Fire HD, granted there's not a million of them like there is in Google Play, But any app I install is going to work exactly like I think it's going to work. That's going to be a huge plus on the Fire TV. You're not going to install games that think you have a touch screen and don't work with the controller. That's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. I just wish. I mean, the one thing that's killing me is that I have all this redundancy in my living room now. I have a Chromecast, which does YouTube very well. It does a whole bunch of movies and TV stuff, and that's great. It does Google Play Music, which is what I want to use. And then now I'm getting this, which does YouTube and all sorts of other things, and fine. And now I'm also getting a Blu-ray player because none of that actually does discs. And yes, some of us still need to play discs, and it's like, and that also does Netflix and Amazon, and it's just, the redundancy is it seems wasteful to me from a consumer standpoint. I mean, they don't care, right? Sony's Blu-ray player that I'm getting is Sony's, and Amazon's thing is Amazon's, and Chromecast is Chromecast. But from an end user standpoint, it's a little silly.
If you buy a whole bunch of boxes, though, you get like 5 free Vudu rentals. You never have to pay to rent movies if you keep buying boxes.
I guess.
You're paying for boxes, though.
Well, but they're cool. You get to play with them.
You want to do some of the Q&A questions that are coming in on all this?
Oh yeah, Q&A.
Jump into a few.
All right. What's the one-sentence answer to this from Pablo? If you have a Chromecast already, what is the value add of the new Fire TV? I would say Amazon content.
Amazon content, games, apps. I mean, it's just there's something to be said for having the box do it instead of you controlling it and sending it to the Chromecast. It's something that you can just have a little remote sit in there. You don't have to hand somebody your phone or have them install an app to use it. They operate fundamentally differently.
The flip side of that, I would say, if you don't want the Chromecast to do anything more than stream your content to you, then there is no draw. Keep your Chromecast because it does that very, very well.
Yeah. No. Ryan asks, why the heck hasn't Google done a Fire-like device already to include gaming? I mean, Google doesn't necessarily have to, right?
Right.
We want them to because we want it done as well as the Fire TV.
But like we just explained with the difference between the Fire TV and the Chromecast, there could be that they just have to have those apps and that experience ready to go. You don't want them to, throw it out there and, fizzle again like the Google TV did.
You guys remember that thing that Samsung had last year, which kind of didn't really go anywhere, but it was kind of a similar product? It was full Android running on.
Home Sync.
The Home Sync. Yeah,
HomeSync,
and they never sent us one. I think they finally just started rolling it out in Europe, like this week maybe. I read something.
That was kind of
different kind of device, right? It's more
Right.
about local content and sharing your stuff on your devices than accessing the manufacturer's ecosystem.
Josh wants to know, can Jerry play Flappy Bird on a Fire TV?
I can play Flappy Bird on anything, son.
Have you tried hacking this thing at all, Andrew?
No, there's a USB port on the back, but it doesn't really seem to do anything. I saw a couple people have already rooted them in some sort, but why? Is kind of
to put Google Play on it.
Yeah.
And then have a bunch of broken apps that don't work with your controller.
I agree, and you agree, but you can't.
Well, I mean, I think it makes a little more sense, or a lot more sense, on the Kindle Fire because it's an Android device with a touchscreen. Apps in Google Play are not made to run on this interface. I mean, that's just kind of how it is.
Ethan wants to know, what stuff do you need Amazon Prime for on the Fire TV? So if you don't have Prime, is this thing just a brick, or do you guys get Prime in Seattle just from living there? Like, does somebody show up at your door and say, here, have Amazon Prime?
No, even with the number of Fresh Direct trucks driving around, they don't just hand out Prime, unfortunately. I do. I mean, so basically, it's just all of the media stuff, right? So if you're okay buying a Fire TV and then buying per episode, per movie, per season of TV, then you don't need Prime for those things. That's always kind of been the weird thing about Prime, is that even with Prime, it's not clear, what would be free, what you have to pay for still. You can still go to Amazon and buy that movie for $15 or buy that 15-episode TV show for $25. You can still do that without Prime if you don't think that you're going to use it all that often. And even if you do have Prime, some of those things might still cost you money. So Prime isn't just a wide open, everything is automatically dropped to $0. That's something to remember. You could still use your Amazon MP3 library, things like that. Netflix, watch ESPN. This isn't like Xbox Live where you need to pay for Xbox Live Gold in order to use all of these other services. It just works. You can load up Netflix and Pandora all you want until the cows come home, even if you don't pay for Prime.
And the big question, asked Pablo, do you guys think that we will ever get a dedicated Android app for Amazon Video on Demand, especially now that we have Fire TV?
I just don't see it happening.
They've said it's coming, but that's been the case for a long time.
They've also said they have no desire because everybody on Android steals. That's what it's going to come down to. Companies are afraid of Android because of the little things they see us do. It's dumb. It's silly. I'm not going to use my phone or my tablet to steal movies from Amazon, but they have that mindset that they need to get rid of. And until they get rid of that, they don't really want to put the effort in.
And now that they have their own tablets and their own set-top box, it makes even less sense, and there's less of an addressable market. They say, oh, well, if you want this, buy a Fire TV.
Yeah, except that you can get Amazon on a Roku, and you can get...
You don't root the Roku or your iPad and
that's true.
Copy it out and then break the DRM.
Yeah.
Remember when Netflix used to have that idea? They came around, and look how super popular and well done their Android app is. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee there are people out there who only subscribe to Netflix because they watch it on their tablet.
Sure.
So Amazon is losing out by having that attitude.
My 7-year-old daughter has learned to work Chromecast and Netflix on an iPad. And so she quit using the Xbox to play Netflix, which is great because it was loud as hell, right? And she would grab like my wife doesn't even know how to. It's my wife's iPad, and Mia does it on her own. I think it's awesome. It's so great. It's so easy. All right, that's Fire TV, I guess. Ethan also asked Phil, is that an XSQ in the background? Why, yes, it is.
That's a coffee mug. Oh.
And a coffee mug.
Coffee mug's more useful.
I was going to say, I missed that. That Q was awesome. Seriously, if anyone knows how to make it flash different colors without actually being hooked into anything, let me know. Because that's what I want.
Upgrade the LED so it shoots a beam out of that hole.
A laser. Do you guys want to talk Google Play Edition for a minute? Briefly. Not very long. Please.
Yeah.
So is it the HTC One M8 with stock Android?
Yes. Here it is. This is what it looks like.
Wow.
Looks like an M8. Looks a lot like this M8, except it's this one. Not this one. This one. Yeah, it's, Google Now launcher on an HTC One. The camera stuff is in there. It works. It's, on the application side, so you edit an image, and then you have the option to edit it in the Google Photos app or in the HTC editing app, and that's when you get the U-Focus and the effects and that stuff, and that's good. It feels a little slower, especially in processing those, than HTC's version. That's not surprising at all. I don't see the point. I do not get it. If you want one because it's easy to unlock, cool. That makes sense. But feature-wise, it just... Since 6, what HTC has done is easily its best software, I think, and there's really nothing in it that makes me want to claw my eyes out. I still use a custom launcher just because I want to, right? That fits my workflow better. But there's nothing else about the way this phone works with Sense 6 in it that makes me want to claw my eyes out, right? I think it's fine.
I think I said it last week. You're paying more for less with this. You're paying full $700. You only have one choice of color. You're missing out on all the features of Sense. You have a UI which looks different, but I wouldn't necessarily say any better. And it's, of course, the Google Play Edition program isn't about selling you a phone necessarily. There are other things that go into it that make it worthwhile for the manufacturers. But it's a bit of a strange choice, and unless you absolutely have to have the next version of Android as soon as it comes out, then you're probably going to have a better time on the Sense version, which is cheaper still, by the way.
Any other arguments, Jerry, Andrew?
I'm starting to come around to think that it's maybe not the great proposition that you think it is, especially when it's more expensive or the same price. I mean,
$699 right beside a $300 Nexus 5. I ain't buying one.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were forcing me to pick one of those phones off Google Play, I would pick Nexus 5 in a heartbeat. Because that
with
is,
the Nexus 5's janky battery life.
Sure. Yes, it's. Well, I take it back. I might get a Moto G, but but yeah, and part of it's just there's still something inherently wrong because, and I know we've said this in previous years, right? You know, here's this phone that the software is very much what makes this an HTC phone. You can say the same thing about Samsung, or maybe LG too, but at least you can say it about Samsung, right? And it almost feels like, and I'm gonna get a little wishy-washy here, but it's almost like you're ripping a little bit of the soul of the device out. Is that too much? Did I cross a line?
No, I'm sure
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there are people within manufacturers who, who feel that way when they release a GP device as well. Because
I can name drop some if you want, but I'm not gonna.
I was trying very hard not to, but never mind.
I mean, it's in the same way that the Nexus 5 and Nexus 4, they feel like they were made to run stock Android, and they work. It's kind of the design.
Exactly. The Moto X would feel weird with Sense on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It would just be like, what? Who did that? And that's not necessarily a rational thought, right? But it's just like, I don't know. So anyway, we've got this one. What should we do with it? Because we bought it.
Drop test.
Drop test. I did that. I did that with the one I just sent Jerry. Did you get it yet, Jerry? Has it showed up yet, Jerry? It was supposed to be there.
Yeah, I've got it here. I looked at that too. I've got some really fine files. I'm going to fix this.
That's what I did with my last one, with the M7. In fact, I dropped a couple of them, and same thing. Just file it down. It's fine.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, should we give it away next week? What do you think?
Should do that.
We need a good contest idea.
Yeah, we need to think of something fun to give that away.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll look for that next week. You guys in the podcast heard it first. You guys live really heard it first. Cool. Ryan wants to know, has the HTC One M8 changed Android Central's best phone to buy away from the Moto X?
No.
No, really?
No.
We're going to have some discussions, apparently.
This big, hulky, slippery mess in one hand and my beautiful Moto X in the other.
To me, that's the biggest question, right? Moto X still feels...
I have spent 2 weeks saying to myself, Alex, you're crazy. This is slippery. It's metal. It is slippery.
It is.
But
and it's big on top of that.
It's big, so here they are side by side.
If I use this every day, it's going to hit the floor twice a week.
Yeah, no, it's big. It changes the way I have to hold a phone. Here's the Moto X. Here's the M8. So it's definitely a thing.
And I am not going to scream about bezels. We've heard enough about bezels. I know why they're there. They're a very good reason why they're there. You need the room. But it's big without offering me more. I'm still a little on the fence, but I see the draw for big phones. A Note 3 isn't that much bigger and has a much bigger display area. You can do a lot more with the size.
Well, the Note 3 has kind of a crappy speaker.
Well, right.
For the extra size is the front-facing speakers. Basically, that's what takes up most of the room.
Well,
I
and
actually would have.
most of. Go ahead, Jerry.
I would have preferred this to be maybe even a quarter-inch wider.
Jerry's right. There's the Note 3. There's the M8. It's real close in the height, guys. With
And
still a little.
and we would not call the M8 a phablet.
Mm-mm.
We should never call any of these phones phablets, in my
Right.
opinion. But it's up there.
It's big.
It's-
Alex, where do you stand? Where do you stand? What's your best phone right now?
I mean, right now, with phones you can actually buy, it's the M8 for sure. In a week, we'll have to wait and see. In a month, again, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's too late to tell the difference between this and the S5, and also I'd include the Z2 in that because that's looking very promising as well. Of course, whatever LG's got. I think once we've got the main three of the early half of this year out, it's going to be real interesting to see how they compare. But I think the M8 definitely takes it compared to everything we had in the past 12 months, including, sorry, Jerry, the Moto X.
Andrew. And no. Andrew's turn.
Phil, you still have to send me an M8 so I can actually make an informed decision there.
Scott, we don't need
can't do
informed
that,
decisions.
Dickinson.
This is the internet. Who has informed decisions? Come on. Fine.
No. Yeah.
We'll make Andrew be the tiebreaker. Don't
There
make
you
him
go.
do it.
I do want to say that the fabrication and design, this is the first phone I've ever seen that's built as well as an iPhone 5S.
It's real close, isn't it?
This is gorgeous. It is precision. It is beautiful, but that makes it slippery, and I do not like the slippery.
There's still something about the 5S that just feels a little more solid to me. I don't know if it's like the thickness of the metal itself or
See,
what.
I get the opposite. I think
Really?
the M8 feels a little more solid because it's a little heavier.
Hmm.
The 5S feels a little light in my hands and just doesn't feel premium, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because it just feels light.
I know what
Well-
you mean. It does almost feel too light to actually be to be a real device. And it's weird, but I've had that before when I picked up 5S for the first time. It's strange.
But this is, if you are a fan of industrial, and I hate the word industrial design, but that actually describes this. We throw that word around a lot, but industrial design actually, describes the M8, and it's everything about it is beautiful.
I'm going to bring it back to you for a second, Phil, because you've got the silver and the grey there.
Mhm.
Any big differences you finding between the two?
No, the silver is, for all intents and purposes, as far as I can tell, the exact same finish as the M7.
More or
I
less
have-
slippery?
I want to say just a little less, maybe, and this is the second gray one I've had. And I don't know if the first one felt more slippery because it was early production, or if I just oiled it up because I've been using it for a couple weeks, and that's just the way it's going to be. I did notice, by the way, this was interesting. So whenever you're going to buy a new smartphone, and I know everybody wants one like first thing, I recommend like waiting at least a couple weeks because you end up with these weird little manufacturing, I hate to say defects, it's just tolerances, right, as things get dialed in. So like on the one Jerry has right now, feel it, Jerry, and you can feel the HTC logo. Like it's not quite as flush as it should be. This one that you can almost see it, can't you, Jerry?
Yeah, it's actually a saving grace in my opinion.
Because you
Gives
can
a
feel
little bit of texture.
Right. This retail one that we bought, this is the unlocked one we bought straight from HTC. It's flush and obviously the way it's supposed to be. I do have a small little thing with the SD card slot. You probably can't see it.
No, we can actually.
Can you see how it's sticking out just a little bit?
Yep.
Almost like a power button. I keep trying to hit it like a power button. These things will get worked out, but with any sort of manufacturing, it's just one of those things, right? Anyway, I don't know. We'll have to have some discussions on that.
Google Play Edition aside, which I think is just ridiculous. That's
Right.
just my opinion. Send the hate mail. I don't care. If you loved the M7, you will love the M8.
Yes.
And just because we individually may say there's a best Android phone out there, it's your money.
It's okay to disagree with us, too.
Right. You should feel free to call us wrong anytime because we are very often wrong. But we have opinions. We like to share them. And Phil's is always wrong.
Stop. Sam has an interesting question. What is your opinion with developers who release a paid application in Google Play Store and then stop supporting and re-release the same application with a few newer removed features and or a new theme for another fee? And he's particularly mad at Tapatalk. How about, why does Google allow this?
Number one, do we want Google to be the police?
No.
Number two, uninstall it. Tell your friends, don't install that crap, never buy an app from them again, and hope that they die a slow, painful, terrible death.
Number three, that's not inherently a bad thing. I mean, it depends on the update, right? But I don't have a huge problem paying another $2 or $3 if there's some, huge change to an app.
Tapatalk was kind of scummy. It felt really scummy.
Right.
The way they shifted things around was kind of weird.
Sure. No. And 100% of the time, that's not always the case.
But right, Unlock with Wi-Fi got updated with a new app that you had to pay for. It's one of my. I use it every day, but I don't remember the name of the new version. It has a new name, and you have to pay for it again. And he explained with Android 4.4, I had to start from scratch. I have the same amount of hours in this update as I did the original, and I deserve to be paid for my time. He's absolutely right.
And I think that's part of the thing is, do you really feel like you should be entitled to updates for 2-3 years on an app and have the app completely change over those 3 years, and you deserve to get that for your $2, $3 investment? It's almost, like maybe there should be a better structure or, way to do that, or make it an in-app purchase where you could say, okay, now you can upgrade again to the newest version, because right now it's kind of either do free with an in-app purchase to the full version for these utility apps, or you buy it up front. And then, at what point does the developer feel like they no longer, they're starting to go back, in the red because they've spent hours and hours and hours after, maybe 10,000 people bought this app?
I've been using a coffee metaphor a lot for apps. And in this case, it would be, I'm not going to drink the same cup of coffee twice. I don't mind paying for a second cup of coffee so I don't have to drink the one I just peed out. Think about that. And seriously, $3-4, come on. Now, that said, app developers need to do the right thing.
Right, and because Tapatalk was mentioned is why I had to go right into do not support those people, because I happen to agree that what Tapatalk did left a very bad taste in my mouth.
There are plenty of good examples there.
Right.
Yeah.
Pablo writes, with a custom launcher, i.e. Nova, on a regular HTC One M8, do all the features work? Also, what about the dot view case?
Yes. Let me try one thing with the dot view case.
I think the lock screen shortcuts you were saying this week were kind of awkward to change if you have a different launcher because it pulls from the stuff you have in the app.
No. So the app shortcuts, yeah. The app shortcuts are slave to HTC's launcher, to the BlinkFeed launcher. It would be nice to have that as a separate thing in settings. And I forget, there used to be a phone that did that. And was it Samsung or it might have been HTC? I don't remember. Where you would actually change that in the settings. No, what you do lose is a little bit of the motion launch. So like I can still swipe down. I haven't done it on these yet, so it's giving me the tips. So I can still swipe down to get voice dialing, which might or might not kick on. Come on. It's not kicking on. There it goes, finally. You can swipe up to go straight to the home screen. Left, I think it's left and right that doesn't quite work now because I don't have BlinkFeed on there, right? Because I'm using a different launcher. Yeah, that's what it is. So it just launches to the home screen. With the case, you can still turn on. There you go. This stuff all still works. You can still take calls.
You forgot to put one of those cases in the box with this M8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's cool. Show that again. I love watching it.
Go watch the video.
I did about 1 million times.
I was telling everybody else.
Oh.
It's a really cool case. It's a shame it's just tough to use open because
when we first saw it, I told myself There ain't no way in hell I'm ever going to want to use that. That looks absolutely ridiculous and stupid. Now when I've seen it, on video, seen it, I want one bad.
Surprisingly popular, also still $50.
I know.
That said, you can pre-order one at shopandroid.com and support your favorite Android site.
You know what? I've got an extra $50. You know what I'm going to go do? Right now, I'm going to go pre-order one from the store.
I'll just send you one if you want.
Well, okay. I still love Android Central, but I'll take free.
I'm just going to pay you back that $50 at some point anyway. Hey, Andrew, does the Fire TV controller have a cheap feeling like the one from Ouya?
I was just going to answer that question too. I would say that no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel as nice as an Xbox controller. And so for $40, it probably doesn't feel like a $40 controller, but it does feel hefty and it does feel well put together. It is a Bluetooth controller and it has all of the proper buttons to use with Amazon. So you get your back, home, menu, play, pause, fast forward, and all that. So you can use it instead of the remote, which is kind of nice. It is a little chunky, but it has the bumpers and triggers and everything. Feels like an original Xbox.
No.
Oh no, I cut myself off.
There you are.
I said the D-pad kind of sucks, but you don't really use that. You use the joysticks most. I would say if you don't already have a Bluetooth controller to hook up to the Fire TV and you want one, I would say buy the one from Amazon because it just works the way that they intended to.
Should we answer this question that's been floating up at the top the whole time? Since you guys buy every new Android phone for review, FYs, DYs, and whatnot, what do you usually do with all those smartphones when you're done with them? You put
We're
them in
giving
AC's
away that M8. I mean,
I know, right? Do you put it in AC's Android phone museum of some sort? Well, first, we don't buy every phone. We do buy a lot of phones. Put it this way. My desk was clean this morning. Here's how it looks by, 3:45, and that's just junk I've been using today. So, you want to see? Yeah, I'll show you the museum. Hang on. I'll go get it.
the big unveiling.
I don't have my headphones in, so I can't hear you guys, but there's just a box of stuff. Yes, that's a Q9H in the top, because I love that phone.
Personally, I just sharpen all four edges and deer hunt with them.
That's just the stuff that actually ended up in the box and isn't laying here on the second desk, which is way messier than the first. So,
he has we do have a lot of stuff we don't give away because we need to keep it for its life.
yeah.
And then we don't use it anymore, and I don't know, I think Phil is like I am and can't, well, he has a Q9, I know he's like me, can't bear to throw them away.
And some of it
No.
just gets, like, by the time we're done with it, they're just not worth giving away anymore. Right. You know what I did buy this week, so we can do some comparison stuff, is the original Galaxy S and Galaxy S2, like the proper European versions and not the weird US versions. I forgot how small those were.
Mm-hmm.
They were tiny. Where are they?
The S2 felt huge at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, yeah.
S2 is a nice phone. You feel the back of that S2 with the, what do they call it, Hyperskin or something? That finish? It's a nice phone.
Yep, I still use the S2 for my house phone with Wi-Fi calling on T-Mobile. That's the phone we keep on the little charging dock here at the house for our phone.
Oh, Ryan says that was my Q9, I think. I think you're right. Didn't I buy that off you for like $50? I forget what. It might be. Cool.
Yeah, if you have old phones to sell, you've got Phil. Phil will be a buyer for most of them.
Catch me after like half a bottle of wine. And I'll be like, yeah, it's all. Yeah,
He'll buy a Nexus S off you.
I like new phones.
I got an Optimus View for you here, Phil.
Oh.
Ain't nobody want that.
I will trade you a broken 4X HD and an Optimus Black.
I was somewhere, I think it was in New York. One of those recent, I saw somebody with an Optimus View, like in
Oh
public.
my God.
Oh,
Only one I've ever seen, outside of Korea.
I saw an Evo 3D the other day, and I thought that was bad enough.
Well, I mean,
No.
those are more common.
The View was
Optimus-
way worse.
The Optimus View Phil and I stuck it in a bag and shipped it to London after Google I/O just so we never had to look at it.
That's true. Another Ryan. We have so many Ryans watching this podcast. Why can't anyone seem to make the perfect phone? It seems like all the pieces are obvious at this point, but no one puts it all together.
Well, they're only obvious to individual people.
Who don't actually make phones for a living.
The perfect phone, quote unquote, is different for each person. So it's kind of
the perfect phone is impossible to make. It would cost too much. I mean, you can make it. It would cost too much. It would, be God knows how big or too small. I mean, you can't do one, right? There is no perfect phone. But there's so many. We talk about compromises going into these things. There are compromises that have to be done. Right, and we see it. I'm real curious to see what happens with this stupid OnePlus thing, because there are always compromises when it comes to, when it comes to thermal, when it comes to available parts. You have to source all this stuff. You can't just say, yes, I want the best SoC out there and the fastest RAM and the best flash chips, and I can't actually get any of those. Well, what can I get? What can I get by this deadline? What can I get by this deadline for a price that I'm allowed to make this phone for? I won't say which manufacturer, but there was an engineer for a smartphone manufacturer. We were talking to, and he was kind of telling his history with the company. He said, "Yeah, I used to work on this line of phones, and I couldn't make phones that cost that cheap. The way I kept designing them, they would cost more money, so they bumped me up to the next, to the big tier for our smartphones, and that's why I'm here now working on this line and." Coming, you have a set budget. Here's what these phones are going to have to cost for us to make money, and you can't make them more expensive than that.
Yeah, unless you're Vertu and you make $5,000 phones. But even then, it's not even about the internals. You don't see somebody manufacturer making $5,000 phones that look like other phones that are made out of plastic and metal, but just have super high-end internals. That's not the addressable market that they can play to. They have to play to a regular phone, wrapped in alligator skin or something.
Reggie, where'd that go? I just lost it. But Reggie said the M8 would be close with an 8-megapixel camera, and I agree. But tell me what that would do to the software side for all the processing of images that this phone is doing. How much will that larger file size and so many more pixels? What will that do to battery? What will that do to overhead when the phone is doing other things in the back? These are all questions you have to answer.
How many billions of dollars will HTC have to spend to research and development a 8 ultra pixel sensor?
Yeah. When we sound like we're blowing off those sorts of questions, there are real life. We've talked to the engineers and the people who built these things, and they have schooled us on it. The HTC frequencies thing I did, and I think I can tell in broad strokes. They've walked us through. These are the things you have to do, and we got into groups and we played engineer and said, all right, here's what we want in a phone, and then they came back and told us, well, that's nice, but here's why it won't work. Here's why that won't work. And it's a very kind of demoralizing process, and I have to imagine, especially as you're starting, you're like, great, I'm going to make phones. Oh, I can't really do any. Fine. It was super interesting, though. So much goes into this stuff. It's amazing, especially when you have something that's as good as this and something that's as good as this, and really this phone too, by the way. When all this incredible stuff in our hands, and when you start learning more and more what goes into it, it's amazing that any of it works at all. John wants to know, is the LG G2 still desirable today?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I
It's also
wasn't
very cheap.
right, if I was getting a phone from my carrier, even though I prefer the Moto X, I would probably get the G2 because it's the best bang for your buck.
Get a G2 in the UK for under £300 now, basically around the same price as the Nexus 5 for a phone with.
If I were a normal person buying a smartphone, I would go every other cycle, right?
Yep.
I would buy a GS4 this year. I would buy a G2 this year. I would buy an M7 this year.
Yep.
Do it cheap and do it off contract.
And the G2 has its quirks. All phones have their quirks, but it is a lean little screaming machine. I was very impressed and still am.
Nicola asks, have you considered making reviews of old phones you have just to show how far Android has come? I would love to do that, actually. And that's actually sort of, if you guys haven't seen it, we started this whole newsroom endeavor this week where we're busting out the news, and the idea is, and we're very early in this and experimenting with how we're doing it right now. And if you didn't see, we're looking for people to come on and actually do it to free up other people to write that sort of content that we otherwise just don't have time for. So absolutely, would be very cool to do.
We do our 2, 3, 4 month review look back things, don't we?
Yeah.
Be interesting to maybe a couple of years on. Say I review the Galaxy S5, you review the Galaxy S2, Phil.
I'll review the G1.
I should do the G1. I never used it before my time.
Then yes, you should.
I really should. What else? What other questions? I like answering all these questions. Do we need to talk about the GS5 any, or do you guys want to wait till next week, till after it goes on sale?
I mean, what can I say?
Yeah. What do we know now that we didn't know?
You can pre-order all the watches on Amazon right now.
You can buy the GS5 in Korea. I guess that's new. Since the carriers just decided to ignore the release date and launch it anyway.
Good on them.
That was crazy.
I
Any
think
other
it was-
questions you guys want to answer, or should we?
I'm scrolling through to see.
What do you guys prefer, Sense 6 or Google Now on the HTC One M8? I prefer Sense.
Blasphemy.
If only for the imaging works right.
Let's see. Travis asks if we ever see we foresee the GPE device prices getting closer to the price of the Nexus. I don't see how they have any desire to do that.
No, because it's not about selling you a phone.
No.
It just isn't. They'll sell it at that price because that's what it costs, and people who buy it will buy it at that price because they'll buy it at any price. They're not going to try and compete with the Nexus because that's always Google's, affordable flagship, and that's kind of in its own little area. They don't need a whole range of Nexuses from every manufacturer at a low price point because it's unworkable and it just achieves nothing for Google.
And if they want a cheaper phone to buy, the Nexus is there.
Yep.
How did you finally stop the never-ending Hangouts podcast last week, asks Brian. So there's a workaround I was told about, and that is you have everybody leave and not go back in, and it will automatically kill itself after 6 minutes.
I was hoping the answer was going to be that podcast is actually still going on. People can watch.
It was like just short of 2 hours when it finally uploaded. Stephen Brumfield wants to know, can you please tell us more about the so-called Android Silver? I don't get it. That's Android Police had a leak of some sort of slide deck or something. It looked like an internal marketing presentation. Honestly, to me, it looked like a wish list of if we wanted to support our product, if Google wanted to support its products, here's how somebody might do it, might go about it. It looked to me like more of a here's how we do it inside Best Buy or some sort of retail store.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped after that. We're unsure, or our source is unsure at the validity of this document.
Yeah,
It's a nice idea, isn't it?
Sure.
We'd all love for Google to have a bigger influence over the carriers and be more have a way to have a better supported device from Google within the whole carrier mechanism. But yeah, I think they said they're maybe 60% sure of it, which kind of, it would be great, but we still have that means we have no idea, where to even begin with imagining how true it might be.
I wouldn't read anything into it at all.
Yeah.
I don't want Google to have more control over the carriers, more control over updates, more control over the software. I don't. It's open source for a damn reason. If you want Google to have control over something, buy a Nexus. If not, don't. Buy a OnePlus One or an Oppo Find 7 or another phone that's open with other Android development. Google is not always the answer. Google does a lot of things that we love, but everything they do is in their best interest first. I just hate seeing everybody want Google to be in control. I don't want that. I want Jerry to be in control, and I want you to be in control, and you, and you, and you.
One final question, and probably the most important one of the week. Do you want another Nexus One? And by God, yes, I do. Such a good phone. Such a good phone. What? Don't look at me like that. Why are you looking at me like I'm crazy?
We've been doing that for an hour.
That's true. Fine.
The big step is to put your SIM in there and start using it.
I know, right? Ooh, it just turned on. How about that? All right, I think that's going to do it. If you want to... Ooh, it's not going to do it. I do that every week. I keep forgetting we have some really good emails.
Do it.
Blaze through them real quick.
Yes.
So I'm going to try your name again. He told me how to pronounce it again. Sachin Bahal? Ow, not quite. I'm trying. Have you ever noticed when I'm in the Google Play Store and I go to my apps and I update some of my apps and later on I restart my phone, it shows that there's still an update to be installed even after I just installed the update. Why does this happen? Is it my device? No, it's Google. Google wonk. Right?
I would imagine.
I don't think I've noticed that specific issue, but the Play Store is a little weird about notifying for updates, and it doesn't always know when updates happened. So I could see that happening.
And updates aren't always pushed out to everyone at the
Right.
same time, is the other thing.
Ransom asks, I was wondering what your thoughts were on Google and Android starting to restrict app access to battery stats and KitKat. It may seem minor, but as a battery obsessive and user of third-party battery monitor apps, it's quite the hindrance, especially when something is running amok with my battery life. Not to mention that limiting access seems sort of ungoogly when compared to open source interests. Please don't rip me for that one, Jerry.
It's hook it up to your computer and cat them. Use the cat command.
Yeah?
I mean, they're still there. Google may have changed the API, but the statistics are still there, world readable. I think a lot of those apps, and this is just me guessing, they do more harm than good because they give you information that you may not understand, and they don't display it in a way to teach you what it means. And you're throwing it out there, and you all you come away with is, oh my God, Google services. My phone's been on and off the charger for 92 hours, and it's used 80% of my battery. It's broken. Well, if your phone's been off the charger for 2.5 days, I don't care what's using your battery life's good. And those apps don't teach you what you're seeing. So maybe that's why Google wants to restrict easy access to some of that data, because it's data that doesn't mean anything by itself.
The publisher in me says, you're absolutely right, you should demand blah, blah, blah. The normal user in me is like, just use your phone, don't worry about it, man. It's okay. I get it, but just enjoy it. That's me.
If you want to troubleshoot a real problem that you have, it's nice to have the tools to troubleshoot it.
Sure.
I think in this case, you're better off adjusting your tool set and not worrying about the dumb things Google are doing, because if you know enough to start the troubleshooting process, you'll understand what you see through the console.
All right, now I think we're done. Do you think we're done? I think we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to do it.
I get paid to agree. Just kidding, just kidding.
You get paid with free .view cases to agree.
All right, if you want to email us, you can do it at podcast@androidcentral.com. Find us all on Google Plus and Twitter and all that stuff. Just search our names. It's the easiest thing you can do. We are brought to you this week, as we are every week, by shopandroid.com. You can call them at 888-468-6158, or just go to shopandroid.com. So, yes, you can pre-order the .view case. I highly recommend you do so if you want one, because it supports us. It does, really. And, you know, there are a bunch of good people working in that store. Support them. Don't do it for us. Do it for them. Do it for the kids. Jerry, do it for the kids.
Do it for the kids.
All right, so next week, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I'm on the road on Friday next week. I'll be on an airplane. Maybe you guys can podcast without me if you want.
We can do whatever we want because you can be
true.
in an airplane.
Fair enough. All right, so look for a podcast from these guys next week and not so much me, and that's okay. Probably plenty of Galaxy S5 and Gear, Watch, and Fit stuff next week, right?
Oh, we'll think of something. You just get in that plane.
All right. Well, everybody watching live, thank you. Everybody listening later, thank you. Hey, by the way, if you haven't, go check out our YouTube channel. We just updated some cool stuff on there. It looks sweet. Looks nice. Go subscribe, by the way. That's another really cool thing you could do in addition to just throwing money at us. I'll give you my P.O. box later. You can just send me a check as well if you want. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Well, maybe if it was going to my P.O. box instead of
Fine.
yours. But
All right, Jerry, Alex, Andrew, thank you guys. Everybody listening at home, thank you guys.
Toodles.
thank you.
See you next time.